And we are live. Welcome to this latest episode of Totally Unscripted. My name is CDev M. Hoxie. I'm with CDev Charles or Chaz Maxon and CDev Steve W.
Hey, everybody.
How you doing, Chaz Maxon?
Yeah, doing good. So, Martin, what are those developer titles we've got there?
So this is rolling out today. So if you're working in the Google developer ecosystem, you can claim your Google developer profile. And you can not only do that, you can claim your own little short URL. So hurry quick to avoid disappointment.
That way you're not Martin Hoxie 1369.
Yeah.
That's right.
The ever Steve W is really pissed off right now.
That's right. I'm sure there's a lot.
So we've gone back to, I think, a really hot topic for today's episode. So we're talking about Google Workspace Marketplace Add-ons, which is a bit of a mouthful, but I think a great topic to be discussing, and we've got a great set of guests as well, which we'll bring on in a second. But it's really impressive in terms of the marketplace, in terms of a place for developers to really have quite a high profile and an opportunity to build on top of Google's Workspace platform and do well from it as well.
Yeah, without simplifying it, the opportunity to write a solution and share it with the world is really at your fingertips. And it allows you to take a good idea, make it a great idea, share it, and maybe even monetize it. So Steve, I mean, you've actually had add-on entries for a while. We're going to hear more today about that profile or perspective, but I mean, love to hear more about how you even got started doing that.
Sure. I remember when it was a to-be item, and I was one of the first ones to have an add-on out there. So that was, 6-7 years ago now? I don't know. It's been quite a while. But, I really like how Google has said, hey, we are proud of our features, but it's possible there are some maybe gaps or pain points, and allowing third-party developers like ourselves to come in to offer a free download. And then maybe if we choose to monetize, we can. But somehow Google brings out resources to give free consulting to make it better and to vet us to ensure the end users aren't going to be harmed. So I think what Google has done for developers like ourselves is just great.
No, that makes sense. And today we got some guests that are both very successful with add-ons, as well as we have a treat where we actually have Elena joining us from the product team who helps developers understand how we can get there. So why don't we bring our guests on and hear more about their stories?
Oh, hi, everyone. And thank you, Charles, for having me.
Absolutely. Hello, Romain and John.
Hello.
Why don't we just, folks who may not know you, now everybody knows Romain because he's been a GDE and in this space for such a long period of time. But Romain, why don't you refresh us, or for folks who don't know who you are, a little bit about your background and how you got started this, and talk about Scriptit a little bit. Tell us what you focus on as a business.
Sure. So I've worked with Google Apps Script since the beginning, so more than 10 years ago. And I started sharing solutions in a very early stage AppScript gallery right at the beginning. And so for me, moving to the add-on ecosystem has been just a natural path. I already had different scripts that were available to users in the gallery, and I evolve with all Google had to offer, and evolve with the offering from Google, going from the old AppScript gallery to the first add-ons that were editor add-ons that were available in Google Sheets, and now into Google Workspace add-ons available pretty much in every Google apps. I created some of the most successful add-ons and marketplace apps available on the marketplace, like Get Another Mail Merge, Awesome Table, Form Publisher, things like that. And that part of my life is done now. I'm not working on those products anymore. But I really enjoyed creating mail merge add-ons, and even if there are tons of mail merge solutions available on the marketplace as of now, I thought it was still a good idea to build yet another one. And I created Mergo, which is still the only full mail match solution available as a Google Workspace add-on.
Oh, that's awesome.
And so at Scriptit, I focus mostly on building and maintaining new Google Workspace add-ons, including Mergo, a mail merge solution, Publigo, document merge solution, and Folgo, a Google Drive add-on, which lets you automate bulk actions in Drive, like copy a wall folder hierarchy, transfer ownership of that folder hierarchy, inspect it to get some metrics about the number of files, who are the owners, things like that.
Awesome. So, John, you're relatively new to some folks because you're a newer GDE, but everybody knows, or everybody should know, is you're the man behind the unicorn.
Thank you. Yeah.
How did you get here? And tell us, what was the inspiration for that distinctive name, Unicorn Magic?
Sure. I feel like I took a really roundabout way to get here. And I always say I'm an accidental developer. The running theme, though, is my daughter, who's now just turned 8. And so rewind to when she was not born yet. I was trying to make myself so I could be more prepared. And I was a high school math teacher, so I taught math at secondary schools for 15 years and wanted to have my students collaborate more using Google Docs. And I wanted to streamline that process of making maths assignments. And I don't know if you're aware, it was really hard to type math, to get math into a Google Doc. And so I learned how to code to do that. And I made a Google add-on called GMath, and that made it so I could make my workflow as a teacher more streamlined. And so then I didn't know, unbeknownst to me, that got super popular because it was the same time as Romain was just talking about, when going from, I used to just share to other teachers and I had the add-on built in, and then they would use it with their students. And I didn't realize that it was going to get so popular. And fast forward about a year and a half, and when Forms add-ons got released, GMath for Forms was super popular. And when TechCrunch wrote up about the Forms add-ons release, they had a one line in there about GMath for Forms. And I had cobbled together like a really bad server, and it crashed. And I didn't know I was teaching full time. But on that day, I got back home and I had like 700 emails telling me my server crashed. It was reloading, server crash. And so many people were saying it broke. And so that told me that A, I had lightning in the bottle, and B, I couldn't teach full time and still maintain this. So Romain, that was back in 2015, I think, 2014. And Romain was super helpful. He had just started monetizing Yet Another Mail Merge, and I asked him a lot of advice on how to monetize an add-on. And I ended up leaving teaching, sold GMath to another company based in Northern Ireland called TextHelp, and we turned GMath into a Chrome extension called Equatio. So I spent about 3 years doing that, like monetizing it and learning about product, which was awesome. And at the same time, just still learning out how to develop it. I am ashamed to admit, but also very positive, that it took me about 4 years to know that Google Apps Script was just JavaScript. So when people ask me, what language do you know? I was like, I only know Google Apps Script. And then eventually it was a huge relief to know that it's just JavaScript, because then all my questions I could find answers to on Stack Overflow. And so that really leveled me up as a coder to know that I knew JavaScript. And so I think that kind of got me here.
I'm pretty sure we mentioned that in the marketing, but good.
And so after I left TextHelp, because I actually had a couple of my add-ons were people wanted me to support them more. And I love that process of building and kind of scaling versus kind of growing, maintaining that. And so I left there and I started a company, and my daughter was, I think, 5. And I said, what should we start our company? And instantly she said Unicorn Magic. And so now like my branding is pink, and I have a unicorn and purple colors, all like, if you asked a 5-year-old girl what your branding should be, you would have like unicorns and pink and purple. And I love it. And I've just kept going with that ever since. So
That's awesome.
That's how we got Unicorn Magic and the branding.
Yeah, that is awesome. So you only have to give her 10% of the commission too, which is
no,
awesome.
But she is our chief marketing officer. So I do run like new logos past her, or new, like I have her do all my flow, because if she can handle like that user interface, then that is my inspiration.
Hold that thought. It's a great point about user experience. We'll get that to a second, but I want to segue to Elena. First of all, one of the great things about this, we have a lot of people who are eager to go on this journey. In fact, I want to do a shout out to Philly B, who's put in the comments that he's trying to build his first add-on for the marketplace. But Philly also put the hashtag challenging. So we have Elena on to actually help us understand maybe some of those challenges and what the process is, and maybe help knock a few of the blockers down. So Elena, can you introduce yourself, your role, your background, what your team does at Google, and what should folks know about building add-ons?
Absolutely. So yeah, I'm program manager for the platform team, and similar to John, I'm sort of accidental program manager, an accidental person working in a tech company, because my background initially as business. But funny enough, both of my parents were computer science engineers, and I think I was kind of, ignoring this for half of my life, and then at some point that's kind of that's reached me anyways. As a program manager for the platform team, I think I wear multiple hats, but the most relevant here, I supervise the marketplace review process. I work on multiple developer experience program, and specifically the publishing experience. So to Philip B comment, I really want to hear about your challenging experience and see if we can help you. But yeah, so that's about me.
Yeah, that's a great segue. If there's any specific questions from anybody listening in live, please shoot them in. And towards the end of the show, we'll actually talk about ways you can contact us for help, assistance, or support. But we'll hold that for a second. We'll build the suspense so you have to stay and watch the whole session. Hey, so real quick, I mean, I think you kind of covered it in the introductions, and I want everybody obviously to jump in on this topic, especially you, Steve, as well, too, since you've done this. I mean, going to the marketplace, obviously, like you mentioned, John, you had a great idea and you wanted to share it. But at some point, the opportunity becomes more than just sharing, because you obviously have to, maintain and grow a business around it. Also, you need to come up with the idea, though, too, and you have to figure out how you make that idea. Romain, you mentioned, there's other products that may be similar, but you've also branched out to other ones. What's kind of the inspiration of the opportunity? Where did you realize, or when did you realize that this was a viable business opportunity that you could, give up teaching, or you could actually focus on this as a primary business venture, that you could monetize and make money off of? Either or.
I can break the ice, I guess.
Sure.
So I have this product with a partner, and the story behind that is the partner was a customer of mine. He has something like an Uber thing called Boomerang Transport, and he wanted to send out text messages, similar you see Uber does, but so he leveraged a spreadsheet. He wanted some programming to use Twilio in the background, so it was done. But then I thought about, wouldn't it be cool to partner with him, since he's kind of like a app script hacker himself, and he has a business mind, a successful one at that. So I asked him, would you like to create an add-on with me? So we've got this little passive income thing going now after about 6 years and almost 6 million messages later. So it was neat to take an old customer, approach them to join, create a new business entity, and work together and profit from it.
I guess for Romain and John, do your origin stories come from, well, I need this and it doesn't exist, so I just made it?
For me, it was not to answer my own needs. It was mostly that I was involved a lot on the AppScript forum, seeing a lot of unanswered use cases, and at the same time, 10 years ago, it was pretty fun to work on the Google Workspace. It was not called that at the time, environment, because you had new features coming every day, weeks, and it was true for end users, but also for developers who could get their hands on new APIs all the time. And so for me, it was super cool to see, here's a new thing. What could I do with it? And there were already mail merge solution, for example, available in the gallery. But at some point, Google released a real interaction with Gmail app in AppScript. And before that, it was only possible to send email, but not interact with Gmails. And so I had the idea to use that to retrieve Gmail draft as your template for an email campaign. And that was simply because Google brought that new possibility that I thought, it could be fun to bring something out of that. And after that, thanks to AppScript, you can build something used by a lot of users, and it costs you $0 because you don't pay for AppScript usage. So usually, you can deploy a script, publish it on the marketplace, and leave it like that. It can have a lot of users, and you don't have to worry about your credit card and going right. And
Was it similar for you, John?
Yeah, definitely. It's funny because actually I took my inspiration from Romain saying that it could be possible to monetize, because before that it was all just free, and that was the understanding that there could be a business case. And I did kind of scratch my own itch, but in doing that, I had like this feedback cycle from users who were like, "Hey, I'm trying to use your thing in this way that you totally unintended to use it." And I was like, "Oh, that's interesting." And then similar to Romain, I'd be like, "Well, maybe we could use this other thing." And then as I get exposed to more APIs, then more solutions came out. A lot of it from feedback of users who were saying, "Hey, I'm trying to make a form. Math has a picture. Can you do these other things?" And so that led to this iteration process of incorporating more and more ideas from and feedback from users, and even people who are like, "Hey, you make add-ons. I want to make an add-on," and kind of iterating in that sense.
So, John, you draw inspiration from Romain. You've been at it for a while now, though, and Steve and Romain, this question's for you as well too. What advice would you give somebody like Philly B, for example, who's new and starting this out? Quickly, briefly, not to hold you to it, but what advice or guidance would you say, things you really need to think about to be successful at this? What have you learned the hard way, and what have you learned the right way?
I'll chime in first too. One of the things I wanted to do, since the add-on I chose would be a right sidebar, I wanted everything to happen there. I didn't want it to link and open up a new browser tab because they could get lost and distracted. So even when it came to monetization, I have this little stripe thing that goes right inside of the right sidebar. So I think keeping everyone right there, in this case, a spreadsheet with that experience, improves the chance of closing the deal, right? Another thing to think about is competitive in the marketplace. At the time, with texting from a spreadsheet, I think they were offering 5 free text messages to kick the tires. Well, we decided to do 50. Now other people are doing 50, but we were first ones to do that. So I think those are some of the points to think about before you get going of how, look at the big picture and set some goals. And the last thing I wanted to mention before handing it off is we wanted to keep it simple as possible. Make it like a utility mindset. And Google helped us to go from 4 steps to process these to just 2. So we get free consulting from Google when they do the review and vet us as well. So I appreciate that.
John or Romain, what advice would you give a new business, a new builder, a new add-on author?
Sure. I think for me, the hardest thing for me to do is I come from a very step-by-step oriented process, and it's to not make my app be step-by-step. Like, just because this is how I thought about building it, I flip it around and try to think, what is the pain point that I'm trying to solve? What's that user experience look like? And then build that on the back end. And so I think that's why it makes it easy to identify that, but that's kind of that differentiating point. Like even with Romain, there's so many mail merging apps, which makes the difference in there. And so if you can make it solve the pain point versus cutting down processes. And so those were the hard parts, is how to make it stand out. But I think the biggest benefit for me is Google helps me scale everything. Like I have millions of installed users and thousands and thousands of daily active users that I don't have to worry about, will it crash, because of that add-on ecosystem and framework allows it to scale up on that, which is huge, because then I can just focus on kind of what does that experience look like, and not will my app crash.
Yeah, it makes sense. Romain, you're the OG of add-ons. You're like the original one out there. What's your best piece of advice for folks like Philly B? What would you say? This is what you need to take care of to be successful.
Make it simple. Try to pass the review as fast as possible. Don't try to make something super perfect. Best is to go out as soon as possible. Then you will have your first installs. You will get your first reviews. They will be bad if your add-on is not working perfectly, but that's how you will be motivated to improve it, fix it fast, and so on. So yeah, make something that works, but super simple. Do the review. With the minimal amount of work possible, and then play with your users.
That is great advice. Hey, a couple things I want to share, and Elena, I want you to jump in on this as well too, from your perspective. But there's a couple things I always hear people worry about too, or wonder about too. One of the things is, we know a lot of what add-ons do is really around extensibility or filling the gaps of missing functionality. Having a great idea is worth sharing, but also don't be surprised if that great idea gets rolled into the product one day. I mean, one of the funny ironies is, mail merge, which clearly is popular, clearly in demand. And as you mentioned, Romain, there's multiple other solutions out there as well. It's a piece of functionality that I always thought we'd build in the product one day, but we just haven't. But there are other ideas that I see people come out with, and whether accidentally or by design, we come out with it becomes part of the product, and the product evolves. So that's one of the first things I always say is, share the idea, but don't be surprised if somebody else comes up with the same idea too, because there's a lot of good ideas out there. The second thing that I always see with it is, and you all hit it on the head, the user experience is critical. Getting people to install it, frankly, can be the easy part, but getting them to come back is the harder part, right? Making them, quote unquote, in love or dependent with your solution is important as well too, especially if you're monetizing and you want to monetize for future. We'll talk about creation part in a second. I really want to get into how you folks actually go about building and designing everything from your user experience to your deployment. But Elena, what do you hear from folks about what makes them more successful versus less successful in the entire process?
Yeah, and I agree a part about user experience, and I also agree that adoption is more challenging. But I'd say that the first step, the first experience users have with your add-on, assuming it's published into the marketplace, is actually in the marketplace. It's your app listing. And I mentioned that I have background in marketing. We all know that first impression counts. So I'd say don't neglect the curation of your product page. And I see it a lot, right? So I see really great functionalities, but for some reason, developers are not necessarily taking care of the app listing, screenshots, images, just providing a simple description of what your add-on of your application does in their app description, right? So explain to users via, again, the simple text, images, videos, you have those opportunities. And then obviously, once you go in through this first step of adoption process, your application is installed, then again, welcome your users. If you think about their Workspace Add-ons framework, for example, you have a great opportunity using the homepage. You would be surprised how many applications are not leveraging this, right? So create some sort of like welcome UI and explain to users what the next steps are. And then you have multiple opportunities to engage with your users outside of the marketplace, right? So I know that when I install a couple of add-ons to test them, I'll suddenly receive emails, and that's great, right? So re-engage with your users outside the marketplace. Another thing that I don't say a lot, but I encourage all of you doing it, when your add-on is adding new functionalities, we don't necessarily have a specific UI for this, but add a couple of words in your app description line. Hey, we added this and this functionality, right? And that's also a great way for you to not only show that you continue maintaining and growing your solutions, but also providing more information for potential users. And don't forget about, again, and I think you'd probably know those numbers. When you publish into the marketplace, your add-on is available to 5 billion users, including enterprise users, including admins. So the opportunity is huge, but you need to make sure that you're not scaring away potential users.
About that, I will mention that so a new add-on isn't super visible in the marketplace, because marketplace is mainly sorted based on the number of users. So at the beginning, you start at the bottom, meaning that if you want someone to find you, it must be through search. And if you don't spend some time on the description of your listing, then people won't find you. And the description is a very good opportunity to add a lot of keywords to make sure that people find you.
That's a great point. And by the way, on this, we are making some, we're working on some features. For example, the searchability is on the 2022 roadmap. You'll see more coming. Another thing that we recently introduced is the concept of curation. So some of their newer applications, they're promoted for some time, to Roman's point, to be discovered and to give opportunity for users to discover them. But it's true, if you're starting from zero, it is very difficult. We have more than 5,000 public applications in the marketplace, so it's true that it's easy to be lost in this volume.
This discussion also reminds me, it's a question as well for everyone. Stability of your product and gracefully handling errors. What are some of the things that you thought about to help to stabilize your product? Do you remove a feature that makes things unstable, or do you keep it? Like, for example, with our text G-Blaster, we said, well, let's only send 500 at a time to make it more stable, and no more than 15,000 a day sort of thing. What experiences have you had that you resolved regarding errors and stability?
Wait, who is errors?
No, no one wants to answer that because they don't want having errors. John, over to you.
Sure. I'll say that I had shifted from editor add-ons for the longest time to the new Google Workspace add-ons, and I love that. Like, the advice I would give to anybody trying to start would be use the Google Workspace add-on framework, not the editor one, because you can get all the editors integrated in a nice way to do it. The only thing that tripped me up that was hard was the 30 seconds of execution runtime, where if you have a really long process, like I have people who are taking PDFs and I parse questions out of there. So if you have a big PDF, I need to worry about what do I do if it's going to take too long, and so you have to restrict the size. And so those are some of the considerations where I have users tell me something's broken that I didn't test because they had a 150-page PDF, and I didn't anticipate that. And so so a lot of times that comes from the user, even though I do the best that I can to try to test out to make sure that it fits all my use cases. And so having a message that throws the error. And so the same thing, like having an error, I have an error message card that pops up when it comes with an error, and my most common ones, it tries to help them out. Otherwise, I tell them to go to the support. But that was the biggest thing for me, is how to handle when it does have an error and not have them just always constantly email me as well to like process my time on that.
Anything to add, Romain?
Well, something super useful is that AppScript projects are, you can easily link an AppScript project to the GCP console and to cloud logging and cloud error reporting. And when you're building an add-on and maintaining that add-on, it's super useful. You get all the errors in cloud logging. You get the exact line of code where there was the error, and you can get metrics on those errors and so on, add more logs to better understand where the error is coming from, all that. And if you build a Google Workspace add-on, it means that all your code is on server side. So all errors will be handled via cloud logs. And so you're sure to have a list of all errors in cloud logs. Whereas if you have an old editor add-on, you will have client-side errors and server-side errors that you will have to manage differently.
That brings up a question that we've had from Manny. Any plan for proper promise/async support in AppScript? Since it's server side, it seems more difficult.
I'm not sure the right people are
answer.
But it's out there.
Announcement on
not the first one to ask for it.
Yeah,
definitely. So real quick, first of all, I want to just put a quick time check in. I rarely do this, but I think this episode is going to go long because we've got a lot of great questions coming in and a lot of great things. I will play a little speed round here, though, if we can put our answers out quicker and to the point, because I have a ton that I wanted to try to get through, and I feel we're behind already, but I think it's fascinating. This is a great conversation, by the way, guys and gals. Real quickly, I just want to know, first of all, you kind of alluded to it, John and Romain. I know you've become a super big fan of Google Workspace add-ons versus editor add-ons. In a quick sentence, why did you choose that?
For me, it's the one app, multiple integrations. So I don't have to, I can do that. And then secondly, the card interface. That is super helpful. And especially, I know you shared it many times, but the card builder to help. I don't have to worry about HTML, learning it, CSS. I can just use that beautiful card builder for the design.
Romain?
Same for me. So one of my add-on is Folgo. It's a Google Drive add-on, and there's no other possibility than building a Google Workspace add-on. But for my mail merge add-on, Mergo, I knew that a lot of people prefer to do their mail merge in Gmail and others in Sheets. And Google Workspace add-on was the best way to make sure that the add-on would work exactly the same way if users were playing in Gmail or Sheets.
Is there a circumstance where you may build an editor add-on in the future?
I'll say yes, only because I do so many things in Forms, and the Forms editor add-on is the only way to interact directly in Forms.
Romain?
I suppose I could. I still have old add-ons that are still working and that are still available as editor add-on, and there could be how to migrate So there are some use cases where not having all the possibilities you want in terms of client-side JavaScript and HTML might be problematic. So yes, indeed, there are some use cases where it's might be better, to go the editor.
And I was just going to add to that. In my small business SWG apps, we have some clients who want add-ons, and there's a pattern where they like to create online courses and then say, hey, this is how you do it with Google Sheets, let's say. So they kind of use Sheets to create their system, right? So it's now a unique product. But they want an editor add-on because they got specifics that they want that goes beyond what a standard card interface would do. So we see a lot of those use cases.
Yeah. Elena, is there any guidance you would give from the product side on actually which framework is the right one to use?
Yeah, absolutely. I think a lot of great points were already mentioned by John and Romain. And so I kind of come back to this user experience story. Card framework, although sometimes sort of like you might feel it's a kind of a gating mechanism, right? So you're not as flexible as you would like to, but it's great for users, right? Users having this sort of workspace unified experience across multiple integrations. And then John, you mentioned across, if you have an application that works with Gmail and editors, and so providing a similar experience, it does help you with adoption ultimately, right? So some of the things that we're doing, and then you might feel like it's a little bit of a painful experience, but ultimately it's to bring more users to you guys. So that's number one. It's true, and I see some comments in the chat. It's true that we still have our features gap at parity, but not at parity, and so I can't promise you that we're going to fix it tomorrow, neither next year. So to Steve's point, if you have solution in mind and it's a specific, very niche solution, and you want to absolutely do X, and it's not available via the card framework by any means, build legacy add-on. But if you have a more ambitious plans and you want to spin your application across all different integrations, and you also want to benefit from our, let's say, a longer term support. And then if you might see that we do invest more in the card framework that we invest in the legacy framework, by any means consider Workspace add-ons. So that would be my advice.
A question from Manny, really, John, you were mentioning card service and processing a PDF. And with cards there is this 30-second execution limit. Any tips for best practices to get around these?
I don't know if it's best practices. I always feel like, thankfully, nobody can see what my code looks like when I publish it out there. For me, it was keeping a timer. Like I literally start an execution, and then every time I'm looping through, I say, hey, normally it takes 4 seconds to do this loop. Do I have enough time left? If not, stop and ask them for another 30 seconds. And so that was something new, that it was a new challenge moving from editor add-ons, is how do I keep track of that 30-second runtime and kind of make sure it doesn't process past that. I know that Romain also had done something where you offload it for to pop open some things. So there are some ways that you can help out with that, but I don't know if it's best practices.
Hey, I wanted to ask again, remember we're in a lightning round here. I want to ask about how you build these things. Talk about your creation process a little bit. Again, Romain, John, Steve, go for it. Doesn't matter. What tool do you use? Are you still primarily AppScript? Are you using the built-in editor? What's your environment look like? Have you moved to alternate runtimes? Just in a quick, can you tell us what's your environment specialty look like? Language of
so that kind of seems like a good answer to Manny's question. Maybe the best would be to switch to alternate runtime, and there he can use Node.js or whatever and do all the promise async and stuff like that he wants.
So what about you, Romain? What do you build with? Let's talk about your specifically. I mean, you've been app scripting for a long time. You've probably found your best flavors. What's your dev stack look like?
Okay, so on my side, I have 10 years of experience on AppScript, so I know the possibilities, limitation, and how to best play in that environment. And AppScript is the only runtime which is 100% free. A mail merge campaign can run for an hour or more if you need to send hundreds and hundreds of emails. So if I needed to switch to an alternative runtime, it would cost it in terms of server cost. It could be quite big. I remember that GMAS, another mail merge solution, not built in AppScript, shared many years ago some server costs, and they were quite heavy. For the price, I prefer to stick to AppScript. I was in terms, AppScript in terms of runtime. In terms of where I code, I'm now using the new AppScript IDE. So I'm not using Clasp. I decided to use the online VS Code version. That is the new AppScript IDE, and I'm pretty happy with that.
John, same question.
Yeah, I'm still only in AppScript runtime, but I have kind of migrated through where I use GCP Cloud Functions a lot for almost like microservices. I'm actually still in the old editor because I like to deploy from manifest, and I just like the color integration. But that's where I use a lot of Cloud Functions that I do a lot of URL fetches to, so for microservices. So, and I actually code in the Google Cloud Shell editor a lot for my Firebase functions for creating those Cloud Functions.
Cool. So nothing fancy, nothing.
Nothing fancy at all. I don't have VS Code. I do everything in the browser. I code with a Chromebook, so it's like from that education mindset of minimal aspect of devices.
Awesome. So the coding part's easy. I get that. What we hear from most add-on purveyors like yourselves is the mystery behind the publishing process. And so having Elena here will be great to debunk it. But once you publish it, and you guys both have multiple apps in the marketplace over different periods of time, obviously there's a learning experience. And again, in a lightning round answer, John and Romain first, what have you learned that you would share with others to get through the process as fast as possible? And then we'll bring Elena on to give us the insider's answer.
Yeah. So on my side, I prefer to have several back and forth until someone at Google is happy with what I submit, as opposed to like trying to say to myself, okay, I need to do the video that shows the scopes I'm using in this specific way, because if not, they are not going to like it. No. I do it the fastest way possible, send it. Then usually it's not perfect the first time. I do the small correction it needs. And I prefer to do that. It's extra work on their side, and that's perfect.
You know Elena's on the call, right?
I kind of second Romain's point about that too, is that also it's helps with that development flow of don't let perfect get in the way of pretty good. And so to start that publishing process actually early, when I'm like, oh, I still have these last little 5%, but for the main functionality, like maybe I want to change what that looks like a little bit, but it doesn't change the flow because there is a back and forth, and it's helpful. Sure. So that's what I'd say too. They're very helpful. It's not, sometimes it might feel like, but once it gets out there, it gets out there. So
Elena might want to put her fingers in the ears for this one, but to Romain and John, so you can go through the add-on publication process, and as long as you don't change your scopes, my understanding is it's not re-reviewed. So do you use that to your advantage?
I don't per se. Like I might change more of the visual, but I don't like to change the back-end part of that. So I don't know about Romain.
Elena, this is a great point for you to jump in and kind of debunk the mysteries of the publishing process and let us know what's going on. So it's all yours. Share.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think we have a slide that we can pull on quickly. And yeah, I'll try to address some of those points. Well, first of all, I think I mentioned that we just presented a slideshow. I mentioned that I wear a few hats, and I think the specific OWASP verification hat is the one that I borrow. I don't know, but I'll totally explain the mystery behind. And when I think about the publishing experience, you know, and you see this sort of like the confused and happy face, and I totally understand for you guys when you built an add-on, it's like, wow, yeah, finally, and then boom, there's a publishing process, right? And you didn't count on it. And I totally echo John, and that's great advice. By any means, start it earlier. You don't have to polish your user experience to start the process. And number two is, and then I try to sort of like add a couple of bubbles on the slide. There are two processes, in fact, and I see a lot of comments right now when you refer into the publishing experience. You know, you obviously, and it's Google, right? So you shouldn't feel that you should know how Google internal org works. But in fact, there are two processes. One process is run by the trust and safety, and that's where actually you're getting your OS consents been verified, your add-in scopes, and then the data access that you will be requesting is validated, verified, and approved. And that's very important. Again, you might feel it's a painful experience for you guys, but what we hear from users, what we hear from admins, they actually really happy that we have this enforcement process in place. And specifically, and I think I saw a comment from Steve about their, I presume, restricted scopes, right? Restricted scopes, it's even a more complicated process requirement, not only time investment, but also our financial investment. This process for more sensitive data is also to make sure that we have some processes in place. And so there, when the enterprise customers and specifically admin decide to adopt your solution and install it across multiple user cells, and sometimes they trust it, right? So they trust that the application is secure. So those red bubbles is basically the process you're going through to get your data verified. The blue bubbles, it's a marketplace review process. That's a process that is run by their Workspace Platform Marketplace team. And that's more about user experience, making sure that your, again, App Store listing is curated, all marketplace policies are respected, and you're in compliance. But we also do check, and this is where actually the OWASP verification process sometimes is a bottleneck. We check that you went successfully through the OWASP verification process. And again, think about marketplace review process is some sort of a free QA process for you guys, right? So we're going through the user experience as we're users, and we're making sure that the application that you're publishing is good, right? Is secure, as a certain quality. And it's true that sometimes there are back and forth because we know we might not understand what exactly trying to achieve, et cetera, but it's for your own good. We're making sure that when the application is published, users are ultimately happy with. So again, my advice for the OWASP verification process, right? Do it earlier. I know there is the team is working on some improvements, and I hear a lot about the demo video and how confusing can it be, and there is a lot of back and forth. But I also feel, and I don't know, maybe a question to like Romain and John, I do feel that we made some progress. It's getting better, but I also do understand when it's your first time going through the process, it does sound confusing. And by any means, again. There's also a comment about human interaction. When you submit your application to be published into the marketplace, a couple of days, a maximum couple of days later, you'll receive an email from the review team, and they're your humans behind the process that are happy to support you and happy to clarify the process itself. One thing that I'll call out though, and I hopefully have some audience here, is if you want to make sure that we send you this welcome email, please provide a correct developer email. Unfortunately, and I say it a lot, you'll just, as of kind of a funny story, when you go through the publishing, marketplace SDK UI, you're not providing necessarily the right channel to communicate with you guys. So, but if you do this, I think everything should be fine. And I just maybe like quickly going back to my slide, the publishing a public app obviously required to go through all of the steps. Publishing our private app is a straightforward process.
No, that makes good sense. Hey,
I think sorry to jump on that. That's the most important thing, I think, is scopes, and thinking about scopes and data in terms of getting your add-on installed and used, is that do the most restrictive scopes, which is different from just making an add-on and then publishing it. Being thoughtful in the beginning or pairing out scopes. But also in the education sphere, there's many states in the US that have new data protection laws that you'll have to sign before they'll install your add-on. And Google helps do that. We're thinking about what data am I asking for and not asking for too much, and how am I protecting it? So it's a thought process on how to get installed domain-wide.
Just a quick one on that. So one of the requirements is a website with things like terms of service. In terms of creating a terms of service, did you go to a specialist, or did you just search for kind of wording that
copy something?
Copy.
Open
I don't say copy.
marketplace.
I say I get inspired from. I don't
Yeah.
copy.
Yeah, if it's the same thing, it will be better for you to carefully review your terms of use and privacy policy, maybe with a lawyer. Once you start monetizing and getting a lot of users, but at the beginning, just take a look at a few marketplace listings, open their terms of service and privacy policy, try to get inspiration from them, and just make sure that it makes sense based on what your add-on is doing. Usually, Google do not really take care about what you're saying in your terms and conditions. But it's another thing for the privacy policy, which should carefully indicate what your app is doing with the authorization you are asking your users to grant you.
I have a question regarding your support of your solutions. For example, creating it, getting a good UI, getting it out there, getting it adopted, those are all possible. But both you obviously came from the angle of I'm a creator, I'm a developer, I'm building a solution. You built this thing, now all of a sudden you got tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of users. How did you plan or scale your support mechanisms up? And I mean, are you just doing this on your own? Like, how do you actually handle your fan club, so to speak?
For me, I built Gmail add-ons that help me process those, like when I have to change things, and I even built a chat bot to interact with. And so those are the ways that I kind of like build versus hire. So to help automate my processes, which then feed into product as well. So
how about you, Romain?
I have people with me. I have someone fully dedicated to support. And a few other in the team, including myself, answering support questions from time to time. And we are trying to cover all time zones with all the team. And like John, I also build, so support is mostly received via email. And I have a Gmail add-on from which I can see everything that the user has done in the past hour or so, and so on. So I add there all the information I need to process things quickly, especially useful when you start monetizing. With a simple click, you can transfer a license, cancel a plan, things like that.
Yeah, quick rule of thumb: if you're actually releasing this to the public, what percentage of your business effort does go into the support part of it? John, I mean, you're doing this on your own, and obviously you're trying to build new features, you're trying to build new business, but is it, again, I'm not trying to hold you to a specific, number, but is it like a third of your time is what you put into the support? Like what's the rule of thumb you would tell somebody new jumping into this to plan for?
Yeah, definitely. It's at least a third. I try to pare it down, but it could take up a half to 75% of like just responding one-on-one and then building support issues. So it does become quite, it could manifest into a lot of time.
Yeah,
I'm guessing good investment of time.
Yeah,
it is definitely a good investment of time, and they give good feedback too. Even the people who are really angry is because they're passionate, and so
that's some of the best feedback. And I always say, by the way, my simple business advice: if you ignore your customers, they will go away. So you need to support them. Hey, real quick, I know we're getting close here on time, but I got 1,000 more questions I wanted to ask you all about. I think the marketplace is a great tool for discovery. I think it's great where admins and users alike can find out about your solutions. But what other tactics do you use to become that viral add-on to get folks to know? I mean, how do you market? How do you become famous? Either one, John. What do you think?
For me, it's evolved over time. I used to be able to post in Google Plus and get traction, and then you move up into the marketplace, and then it was Twitter. But now it's a weird space where I don't have the answer anymore. I feel like it used to be I would tweet about things, but really for me the best is just continued usage in the marketplace.
Right. So business is good enough. You don't need to advertise outside.
So regarding specifically the marketplace, you can, if you don't have a specific ID but want to build something for the marketplace, try to see where there are not too many apps listed. For example, if you if you open Google Drive and open the marketplace listing from Google Drive, you will see that there are not yet tons of add-ons available, meaning that if you publish a new add-on for Drive, you will be a bit more visible than if you build an add-on for Sheets. If you build a Google Workspace add-on, it can be visible in Sheets and in Drive, which is also better. So yeah, try to benefit from the marketplace. There are now curated categories also in the marketplace, and maybe we can share the link later, but there are some information about how those listings are created, or maybe Elena could talk about that. And so you might also try to be among those who could be listed there. Apart from that, yeah, try to be visible to EDU admins, because if EDU admins install you, you get a lot of installs in one go, and so you get a boost of visibility. Yeah, try to leverage things like referral programs and things like that to be installed by more people.
Those are good points. I also thought you were going to say coming on totally unscripted would help, but I don't think that's enough views. Elena, from your perspective, what do you see that will make you more recognizable? What will make your add-on kind of pop? And what have you seen or heard other people do outside of the marketplace? If any of those things, what are some of the success stories you may have heard?
Yeah, I always wanted to actually ask Romain and then John, but feel free to jump later. Again, coming with my marketing background, what about those outside of marketplace digital channels, like posting, promoting your application in a, in a content related to your target audience? Let's say you're targeting teachers, so do you like posting in those pages or articles, etc., etc. And again, talking about sorry, that's my clock singing. Talking about and to Romain's point, it's hard to be discovered when you're new. The way I think about it is you do have to make some sort of investment outside of marketplace. It's similar to YouTube strategy. I don't know how many of you folks you're familiar with this YouTube viral effect, right? But it has to reach a certain critical mass first, unfortunately. And for this to Romain's point, all marketing channels are good enough, right? I'm not saying, and then maybe the curious if you guys are trying to even like promote it via paid channels, but ultimately you need to let a certain number of users know about your solution. And if solution is great, then the viral effect will happen. I hear a lot from EDU users, teachers. It's word of mouth, right? You build a great solution, you have let's say one school or one school board adopting it, and then it'll get known. Similar in the business world, right? So if you have a great solution and it's adopted, and then people continue using it, it will somehow be known by many. But the first step, obviously, that you need to do on your own outside of, I guess, Marketplace also. And talking about editor choice, Romain, you mentioned, yeah, it's publicly available. I think, Charles, you just posted it into, yeah. So basically all eligible apps, and you have eligibility criteria in this article, they will be listed as part of the created categories. So it's transparent and fair process. So as soon as you're checking all those boxes, you will be part of that, part of the promoted apps.
Awesome. Hey, we're at time. If everyone's okay to go a minute or two over, first of all, I want to do a shout out to a bunch of folks that have put some great comments in. So Raul, you're absolutely right. We've captured your questions there. Those are great. I don't think I have time to go into them. Steve as well. Thanks for your comments. I wanted to kind of drive to an end here and talk about, and Elena, I want to aim this target to you. You're building it on, maybe you're publishing it, maybe you're stuck, maybe you're changing things, maybe we change things or something. I know your team, I know my team can't work with every single partner out there. You can't touch everybody. What do you recommend to developers when they get stuck, if they need help? I mean, I think our documentation is great, but documentation may not be everything. What's the steps you would take to guide somebody to a better ending than getting mad at Google?
Yeah, so you definitely start with reading docs, and then you read docs again. So that's your second step again. And then partly because it's sometimes confusing, and it's true that in many cases when I have to answer some sort of like issues or questions, they could be found in our developer docs. Your next step could be the Stack Overflow. I think, John, you mentioned that many times when you're debugging your app or you use this channel. And the good news is that the Stack Overflow is now also moderated and supported by Google. So it's part of our scalable support effort. So questions are getting answered, and not only by community, but also by Googlers, by Google support. You have an opportunity to file a bug or case via our public issue tracker. Right. So now it's a channel that is, because it's a public channel, so you're getting exposed to the Untitled world. So some of the issues, I do understand, they require more of a one-to-one support. The good news, and I don't know how many of you are aware, is that we launched a new support program. It's a pilot, and it's only available for now to Workspace users. The reason being, we need to have some sort of gated environment, right? But you could file the case and you could discuss your problem. You could start debugging as a one-to-one support, right? So we recently launched it. It's limited, but by any means, try it out. Yeah, and then again, we do hope that we will improve our support offering going forward. But to Charles' point, we can offer this one-to-one support, and specifically when your question is very specific to what your app is trying to do, it's very difficult, right? So we can have people looking at your code, for example, or changing code for you.
So just to clarify that real quickly, if you have a bug or an issue and you're not a customer, but you're a developer, put that in the issue tracker, issuetracker.google.com. If you have a, what we call a Dasher account.
Workspace credentials.
Domain, if you're an entity that uses it, you can go to that form that Martin flashed on the screen. If you could refresh up Martin, that'd be awesome. He also put in the notes. You can go up there and you can actually get additional support in your build process to help you actually get through it. That is super awesome. That is super new. I see the word pilot up there, means we're actually evaluating that from the scale, folks. But if you're interested, please definitely do that. That said, we are super at time. I want to pause. First of all, Elena, thank you so much for coming on and doing it. Before we drop off, though, I'd love to hear from John and Romain. What are some of the future plans for Scriptit and Automagical apps? Automagical, I need your product name. Unicorn Magic, your company name. What are you guys building? What's next? What's the future? What can we expect? Where you're going with the businesses? Where are add-ons taking you?
Yeah, I have a couple new add-ons that are like very close to entering the publishing process, and so that's like been top of mind. And some of them are new, like internal ones that I'm turning to monetize Gmail add-ons, and some of the chat things that I do internally. I'm excited to push them out live to the world.
Romain?
No new add-ons, but mostly new features in my existing add-ons. I prefer to have only take care of a few add-ons, but invest a lot in them, spend a lot of time updating them.
Steve, how about you?
I'm thinking about Google Calendar add-on. In this case, send out reminders.
Cool. Martin, how about you for an add-on?
Well, I've got a project that integrates into the Twitter API that has been quietly not an add-on for many years now, but in dire need of a add-onification.
And you can all ask me the same question. I actually publish quite a few internally to our organization. In fact, Google's internal domain has, I think, literally in the thousands of add-ons. I think it's over 1,000. So it's quite a few. And so a lot of folks build them internally, but obviously we're not as public focused. But great use cases either way. I still think the ability to add functionality to the product is one of its strengths, right? The ability to allow third parties to do it, especially when you look at spaces as specific as EDU or certain other verticals. I think it makes so much sense. And so absolutely great. That said, I'm just going to pause. First of all, thanks folks for coming on. I want to thank folks for listening. We're kind of at our end of season here, but we'd love to know what folks would hear for other shows, other ideas. Do give us those comments, do chime in, do hit us up. With that though, anybody else, any other questions, comments, thoughts? Happy holidays. What else?
Yeah, happy holidays. Definitely.
Thanks so much for having me on. I am so pumped about it. Huge viewer. Glad to be a part.
Perfect.
Great. Thanks.
Yeah. Thank you.
Well, thanks everyone for tuning in, and particularly all the people in the chat. It's been a real struggle this episode to keep up with all the comments in there, which is a fantastic problem to have. As Charles says, this will probably be the last for the season, so we will see you in the new year. In the meantime, wish you all happy scripting.